you ever really notice that the things that we worry about the most are usually the things that don't really happen? You know what I'm talking about. We anticipate and worry about things in the future. And if we're excited and happy and content in our present, we sometimes will engage in this superstitious thinking, like don't get too excited, don't be too happy, don't celebrate too much, get too excited or too hopeful or too content with our lives, that we will somehow then be able to protect ourselves, inoculate ourselves, if you will, from the pain that will happen when stressful situations occur or loss or trauma. And the reality is, all we end up doing is depleting our resources by anticipating what is yet to come. And the spoiler alert in all of that is that when trauma and stress and difficulties occur, there is nothing that we're going to do today to shore ourselves up or prepare ourselves to experience less distress or less pain when it actually happens. All we do is deplete our tank, deplete our resources, so that when it does happen, we are unable to actively cope. So what is anticipatory anxiety? Well, it is not a condition. So what we know about anticipatory anxiety is that it's a symptom. It's the same kind of anxiety that you could experience in other conditions. So the heart racing, blood pressure up, your muscles contracted, constant worry, stress headaches. And what can happen then is those can all lead to things like social anxiety, generalized anxiety, obsessive compulsive anxiety, all because we are anticipating and living in the future and not focusing on our resources here in the present. So a couple of things that we know physiologically. The brain is designed to protect us. The brain is supposed to be hypervigilant, scanning the environment, looking for potential risks. It then triggers automatically our fight or flight response, which is our protective mechanism. When the adrenaline shoots up, the cortisol level shoots up, all designed to help us flee from stressful situations or actively fight back. So the fight or flight response actually sits in the amygdala of the brain. That's where the stress hormones are automatically and unconsciously released as soon as our brain says that we're in a dangerous situation or perceives us to be in a dangerous situation. That is a normal, healthy response. Anticipatory anxiety reroutes that and sustains that anxiety for a longer period of time. So think about it as phasic anxiety is where there is an actual identifiable threat or a stressful situation that you have to cope with, and your brain goes into an active mode. Stress hormones rise, you begin to actively cope, and then once the stressful situation abates or your strategies for coping begin to move you forward, the stress hormones reduce. But in anticipatory anxiety, the amygdala sends out the signal, but the brain never is warned that this is just something we're kind of thinking is a problem. There isn't really an identifiable problem. It's sort of like, hold on 1 second, I think it's coming. And that prolonged period of time where the amygdala continues to release adrenaline and cortisol, which is our stress hormones, the longer that happens, the more we're depleted physiologically. Our immune system is compromised, our heart is compromised, cardiovascular condition is compromised. We know that over time, chronic stress, like anticipatory anxiety that has no end in sight, is physically harmful and emotionally harmful. But we can change this. So let's take a look at 4 things that we can do to reroute this anticipatory anxiety and bring us back to our present and out of the what-ifs of our future. Once the amygdala of the brain is engaged in the fight or flight response, you are not going to be able to reduce your anxiety by simply reasoning with yourself. The amygdala can't be reasoned with. It is a physiological, subconscious, unconscious reaction to keep us safe. What has to happen to reduce that amygdala's charge is physiological exercise or energy. The best things you can do to quiet down the amygdala once it has begun to fire is to take deep breaths from the diaphragm. We know that this kind of breathing begins to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, and with that begins to turn off the charge from the amygdala. When we avoid the very thing that we are afraid of or anticipating or worrying about, we cheat ourselves of the opportunity to have a positive experience, to correct our negative bias. So we might be worrying about something and giving it 220 volts of energy, where really it maybe only requires 110. But we won't be able to know that or correct our level of anxiety if we don't step forward and have a corrective experience or a positive experience that shows us that our level of concern is disproportionate to the actual thing that we're worrying about. Have you heard about the Sunday Scaries or the Sunday dreads? Maybe you've experienced that. Many clients that I've worked with over the years will talk about how they get excited on Friday as they leave work, they enjoy their Saturday, and then Sunday morning comes, and most of Sunday they begin to feel this increased anxiety as the day progresses. And by Sunday night, they feel anxious, they feel restless, they feel irritable, they have this doom and gloom and dread feeling as they anticipate going back to work the next day. So one of the things that we need to do to prepare ourselves for Monday or for other events is to take ourselves again out of the future and put ourselves back into the present. And one of the most important strategies to do that is to use mindful techniques to focus on what's happening in your world and your mind in this moment. You can focus on trying to be mindful about what you're actually experiencing in the moment, as opposed to allowing your mind to drift towards what's coming down the road. Bringing yourself back again to be fully present. And we'll have a video in the future looking at mindful techniques and strategies as to how we actually do that. But I think for each of you at this juncture is to pay attention to what do you do to keep yourself grounded in the present. And gratitude, we know, is one of the most powerful techniques to bring our brain back to center, to focus on the things that we are enjoying in the present. The other thing that we know that increases anxiety is a sense of uncertainty or the unpredictable. You know, we are creatures of wanting to know. I want to know what's going to happen next. I need to know the odds of this. But life doesn't allow us to do that at all times. But to the extent that you can prepare yourself, whether it's Sunday going into your job on Monday, mentally preparing yourself for what's coming, making a plan on Friday, preparing for their Monday, and then truly closing the book on that, knowing what's going to happen on Monday, being prepared for what's going to happen on Monday, so you can remove that from your mind and from that anxiety loop of thinking about and anticipating, because you already have a plan in place, moving you towards action. Number 4 is something you're going to hear me talk about over and over and over in many of these videos, but it's the importance of adequate sleep, of having good sleep hygiene. So what do we mean by that? Well, it's making sure that you are getting adequate rest. Typically, most people require between 7 and 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. So not cat naps, not 2 hours here and 3 hours here. Your body needs to fully decompress and relax so that the brain can go through the 4 cycles of sleep contiguously. What ends up happening is when we are anxious and we're stressed and we're worrying, our sleep is deprived. And when our sleep is deprived, it sets off the alarms in the amygdala, releasing more of the stress hormones, and it becomes a vicious cycle. When sleep is interrupted, it pulls us out of the restorative stage, the REM cycle, the deep stages of sleep, and it leaves us feeling exhausted. And when we are physically exhausted, we are mentally exhausted, and then our coping and our resilience is depleted. So we all know that when we are sleep deprived, we are irritable, we are crabby, we are not creative, we cannot follow a task, our attention and our concentration is interrupted, our memory is affected. Adequate sleep is critical to rerouting and circumventing this anticipatory anxiety response. And along with that, sometimes people will think, well, okay, if I can't sleep and I'm restless, maybe I'll just have a couple glasses of wine or a little shot here, help me relax and decompress. I wish that was a good strategy, but unfortunately what science has shown us is that alcohol actually interrupts the REM cycle of sleep. While you might feel sleepy after you've had a couple of drinks before bed, what ends up happening is it keeps your brain in a light stage of sleep. You never fully go through the 4 full cycles and get into that deep stage of sleep, which is where the restorative properties happen. So avoiding alcohol, if you're already struggling with sleep, is a really important first step. Then the other is keeping a routine. We know that our body is like a machine. We are creatures of habit. Going to bed at the same time every night, roughly. Getting up at about the same time. Doing things that relax or unwind you at night. It used to be that we would tell people, no TV in your room, don't have lights on. Now I can tell you that I think for people, and myself included, having TV, if it's something that is mindless, something that you're not engaging in, having it on a timer, can actually be something that lulls the brain, turns the thoughts off, and allows you to get into a relaxed state of sleep. So whatever works for you, that is not stimulating, that is not keeping you hypervigilant, that is not stoking up your brain with a lot of worry or information or problem solving, but is rather kind of that quiet hum in the background, you should be doing that before you go to bed. And the other thing is research has been very clear about blue light. So minimizing the amount of blue light in your room, charging the phones, the VCR or your television that may have a light that stays on throughout the night, or some chargers on a phone have the light that remains on even after the phone is charged. Take a close look at your bedroom space and make sure that you are turning off all of the elements that are emitting that blue light that could also be interrupting your sleep cycle. Anticipatory anxiety lives in our future, but when we force ourselves to come back mindfully to our present state, listen to the conversations that we're having with ourselves, substitute the dialogue for something that is more realistic and positive, our anticipatory anxiety will fade. For more strategies and tips on specifically how to change some of that negative self-conversation, you may find this video helpful. If you liked this video, consider giving it a thumbs up and share it with somebody who you think could benefit from the information. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell, and we'll notify you every time we post a new video here on this channel.